Good morning, I'm Chrissy Staley, and I'm the director of the Wiregrass Georgia Technical College Foundation. And you may be asking yourself, why is the director of the foundation introducing what is a new academic program? Well, the Wiregrass Foundation is the conduit that can help make a private partnership happen a little quicker and go a little smoother. So we're going to talk to you about a partnership that Wiregrass, Lowndes High School, and ACE Electric started a couple of years ago. This venture started back in 2019 when ACE approached us and basically said, you know, we know you have an electrical program, but it's not really the type of program that's meeting our needs. ACE did support the program in a number of ways. Probably most importantly, they took the time to have their leadership sit down with the folks that developed the curriculum for us at our college so that we could make sure that we developed the program exactly how they wanted it and it would move through the approval processes that we have to go through at the college smoothly. So ACE did support the program financially, which is one of the components that the foundation was involved with. ACE also promoted the program to not only high school students, but to their existing employees, which I know Nicole will talk about a little bit later. And then we promoted the program at Lowndes High School. So I know y'all know Jason, but I did want to introduce Nicole Shanks, who is the workforce manager at ACE Electric. She works from the corporate office here in Valdosta, and she is responsible for leading the company's workforce development initiative and implementing related strategic plans through the company. She's currently focused on developing and supporting programs and partnerships at high schools, technical college, and with existing military and veteran organizations. And I just do have one little housekeeping thing. If you do have questions, we do ask that you please use the microphone, even if you do have a great voice that carries, because we are recording this session. So I'm just going to step out until we get towards the end, and I'm going to let Nicole and Jason take over because they kind of have this down to a science.
Thank you. I'm going to stand and sit. All right, so we're actually going to start with a little video, and the video is going to highlight, it's about a little over 5 minutes, but it's going to highlight the flexibilities of partnering with the high school for an apprenticeship, and then we're going to get into the specific model of how we worked with ACE. This is a resource that was put on by CTERN, which is a resource network for all vocational education in Georgia. They came to us and were saying, hey, look, can you share how you did some of the things you're doing in Lowndes County? We want to make this a resource for all the coordinators across the state. So it's interesting that we talk here to our local economy, our local industry, but the DOE has come and said, we want to market this across the state. We want everybody to see what you guys are doing. So there are some pretty cool things happening here. So I'm gonna be quiet, and they're gonna run a video real quick, and then we'll jump into the presentation. So if y'all can run that for us real quick.
There definitely is a skilled labor shortage in this country and in this industry, and you know, for ACE specifically, we found that we weren't getting any young people coming out of high school or tech schools interested in applying with us. And that's not just for ourselves, but that's for electricians, HVAC, plumbing, all the critical trades.
We have a real challenge in retaining good quality employees in our area. Many times there are no significant architectural schools in our area. So they typically go off to one of the bigger cities and they find work in the bigger cities, and there's not a big incentive for them to come back.
Internships and apprenticeships are part of architecture. It's a part of the process of architecture. And so we've always fostered young people in our firm, meaning that we look to the high school interns to come into the firm, someone who really wants to pursue a career in architecture and take that all the way through college and then return to Valdosta.
We have some really great local, young, talented individuals in the high school level. Our thought was, if we can grab them while they're young and in high school, we can retain them here in our local community and continue employing them most likely through college. Staffing our plant is probably our biggest challenge. We were under the faulty impression that we could not, as an industrial employer,
employ anyone under the age of 18. And we were enlightened and told that there was an avenue for us to employ people that were juniors and seniors in high school. That opened some doors that hadn't been available to us in the past.
There's a lot of misconceptions about hiring students that are 16, 17 years old. People think that they can't use tools and they can't run machinery and they can't be on job sites and our insurance won't cover them. As long as they're working with somebody that is trained, that has the skills to show them and they've been properly trained and have safety training, they can do anything just about.
Yeah, it's not going to jump up our workman's comp rate. It is legal. There are certain things that these kids can and can't do, and we just have to abide by those rules. But it's not like it limits necessarily what they're able to do on a day-to-day basis.
Really what we found out was there isn't any kind of restriction in terms of hiring someone when they're 16. They are a part-time employee and they work just like a part-time employee.
Once we explained how this program would work and that Kaylee would be in our lab, which is very supervised, she is not working on projects by herself, but there's that level of supervision, that's what made it work.
We said from the very beginning, if we keep one of these students beyond graduation from high school, then it's worth every penny and all the effort that we spent on it. And we now have 5 that are still working with us currently, 4 high school graduates, and 3 of them say this is the career for them, they're going to stay with us.
I think the biggest takeaway is not only being to employ someone who is interested in this industry, but also gets manufacturing back out into the high schools.
Our goal really is just to get kids involved and excited and let those kids be the recruitment for their friends and their friends' friends, to let them know, hey, there's opportunities out here where I can be outside, I can make good money, I can make a career.
We're essentially recruiting new employees that by the time they graduate from high school have 2 years of experience with the company.
It gives the student an opportunity to come into the firm, to get acclimated to an architectural firm and what happens there.
These people want to learn, and they, if you give them the opportunity, they do a great job for you.
We're looking for people every day that want to work. We received only high quality students that wanted to come to work.
We saw the advantage over the obstacles. It far outweighs the obstacles that we had to go through to get this program to work for us.
If other employers do not get involved in these types of programs, then we're going to stay in the same situation that we're in now.
I don't know what our other options are. I mean, like I mentioned before, everybody understands that we're at a critical point with the resource shortage, that what else is there to do? If we don't do this, what's our other option?
For 30 plus years, we've addressed the brain drain, the talent loss that a community like ours suffers from. We've been addressing it with the Chamber of Commerce. We've been addressing it through the university and college levels. The work-based learning program is a better way to reach these kids when they're young, to mentor them, to have them go off and come back to some of the companies that they've established relationships with and have a guaranteed job with. I think it's a better approach to maintaining some of the talent in our community.
All right, so that's a resource that is basically born out of this partnership that we have with ACE. And what we've been able to do is leverage this partnership with other employers who've seen the success. JCI saw the success, leverage that with Langdale Forest, and been able to replicate this model across multiple different employers. So that's kind of where we are here. And we're looking today, our presentation is it's called a winning partnership. That's what we're here about. We're about partnering together, trying to tackle economic development, but that comes from my level, which is workforce development. That's the first step in this economic development process, is developing the workforce and getting them plugged in. So we'll go ahead and get started. Here we go. So this was the need, and we've mentioned this before. The need was ACE had a critical labor shortage. So as the system level coordinator at Lowndes High School, here's what I got out of it. I needed dynamic placements for my youth apprenticeship students, my students who are in construction, who are in automotive, who are in welding, who are in agriculture, and all these students, this is what they were wanting to do. I needed a place to put them. I don't want to put them in a fast food environment. Now, that's bad, but it doesn't align with what they want to do for a career. That's my goal, is to take these students and put them in a place that's going to facilitate what they're learning in the classroom, and it also aligns with their expressed interest and career goal. ACE.
Yeah, we definitely weren't seeing any students coming out of the high school construction programs, and the construction programs in the local and surrounding high schools has kind of died out over the years. And there weren't a lot of students that were really engaged, or even, we've just felt like if they don't know what's out there, you just don't know what you don't know. So if we can get some students and let them explore a career in the skilled trades, then maybe it'll, continue to grow, and it definitely has. So we wanted to start engaging our young people locally, and that's where Jason came in. And
so that skilled labor shortage was critical for you guys, because you're looking at saying, hey, look, and a big part of that in our conversation was the fact that the majority of their workforce was 6 or 7 years away from retiring. And so you have your upper level project management people who are about to retire, and there's already a labor shortage on top of that. And so that's kind of what we promote the need here. And then we also see with Wiregrass, this is the need. They have a need to respond to the needs of industry. That's one of their main goals, is to respond to the needs of industry. And also it helps when you do it this way, because you have, the way we set this model up is all three of these parties are at the same table, and we're not going hungry, okay? The needs of every one of these parties is met through this model. And it's something that we started. Again, I don't know that it was anybody's unique vision. It was a collaborative effort to sit down and say, how can we meet your needs? How can we meet the needs of Wiregrass? How can the high school students be needed? And then when we've done that, the winning partnership was the fact that now the community is being developed, because you've had other employers say, hey, I see what you're doing over here. And then my question to them is, well, why aren't you doing it? And then they're getting involved, and they're getting involved. So what we're really doing is we're seeing a massive, that may be hyperbole, we're seeing a large number of students choosing to stay in our area versus go somewhere else.
And one of the other reasons for partnering with Wiregrass, we couldn't enroll these students and give them kind of a jump start in a career for a journeyman electrician through our own internal apprenticeship program, because we're not allowed to register them with the Department of Labor until they're over 18. And we wanted them to have that jump start. So if they continued to want to stay here, that they had all this OJT and the related technical instruction, and they were that much closer to earning that. And again, a lot of times it wasn't trying to convince the kids, the students, that this is the industry for them. It was harder to convince the parents that this is an opportunity for their students, and getting Wiregrass on board and getting a degree program embedded into our apprenticeship and in our program helped to sell it to the parents, because the parents are still thinking, my kid needs some sort of a degree in order to be successful in life. And while, yes, if they want to continue on and go back into construction management beyond getting a journeyman level electrician license, then yes, that is important. But if they just want to, this is what they want to do, and eventually they want to be a superintendent or whatever, we don't require it, but it helped sell it to the parents for sure. So.
Absolutely. So here's kind of step one. We're going to kind of go through this pretty quickly because we've already covered it. Step one was the critical labor shortage that ACE had in their commercial electrical construction field. I can never say that right the first time ever. For every one employee who enters for relieving the profession, on top of that, the majority of their workforce was aging, getting closer to retirement. So that kind of exacerbated the need to bring more students in. They also need a customized curriculum from Wiregrass that addressed their needs specifically. So any student who goes through that program at Wiregrass can go work for another electrical company, but they know for a matter, like absolutely when they graduate this program, those students know what they need to know to be successful at ACE. You know, because otherwise you're getting a student from a program and having to spend a lot more time training them to your specific needs. So it's pretty ingenious how this is set up, but it also took a pretty significant financial investment from ACE to do that as well. So that's the description one. That's where the need started. And we'll also say, I guess you could summarize this by saying it takes a company, and I'm not saying those who don't do this don't have this, but it takes a company who has vision. ACE was looking down the road saying, this is what's about to happen. We're about to have these number of people retire. We know there's already a critical labor shortage in our industry. If we don't do something now, we're going to be stuck in a couple of years. We're going to be in really bad shape. So it took them having the vision to go out and address the problem. I was always taught to say, or I was taught to me, address the problem when it's a BB on the horizon versus a cannonball off the bow. Because if you wait to see it's a cannonball, your ship's going to be sunk. So see problems coming, address them as BBs on the horizon, not cannonballs off the bow. And that's step one of the thing. Step two was ACE went to Wiregrass to get that customized curriculum. ACE provided funding for this new lab at Wiregrass to facilitate the teaching of that curriculum. Wiregrass helped build that curriculum, and the Facilities and Partnership helped drive the enrollment for this program. And you see there is a picture of us at the ribbon cutting. I almost wore that shirt today. I'm glad I didn't. That would have been embarrassing to wear the same shirt I'm in the picture with. Anything you want to add there?
No, that was great.
All right. So here's partnership description from the Wiregrass curriculum, and I don't want to oversimplify this, but this is not my main area. We have provided a link there, so if you want to go see what those core competencies are for that curriculum. But essentially, there are 3 levels to that program. And Joe, is Joe in here? Okay. There's 3 levels. There's the certificate of TCCs for registered apprenticeships. There has to be a wage progression. So we also enrolled, and you'll see in a second, we enrolled the Department of Labor in this. So these students are youth apprentices with me at the high school level, but they're also registered apprenticeships with the DOL at the state level. That requires a wage progression. There's basically 3 areas. There's basic electricity technician certificate, and those are what those cores are. So that's the curriculum component of this. They can either choose the diploma or the degree track. And the degree track, we have one of our students, Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
Is in the degree track.
Yep.
And so we'll get to those success stories in just a second. Now here's step 3 of this partnership. This is where you see where you see Lowndes High School come in. ACE needed access to new skilled employees through our CTAE programs because there's a critical labor shortage. That they don't exist in the current pools is basically what that means. The labor doesn't exist in the current pools that they were looking for. So they need access to new talent. That's where the high school comes in. Wiregrass needed access to those same students because that's going to help drive their dual enrollment. Okay, now here's where Lowndes met that need. Lowndes needed the dynamic work-based learning placements and youth apprenticeship placements for our students, and we also wanted to be able to extend more dual enrollment opportunities to our students as well. So you see how this is a really good fit for all 3 parties. We're solving the critical labor shortage that ACE is facing. We're supplying dual enrollment opportunities for Wiregrass. We're giving students not only good dynamic placement in the industry, but we're also giving those students access to wage increases through credentialed certificate or certificate program or degree program. So right now there's 4 people. It's Wiregrass, ACE, Lowndes High School, but more importantly, it's the students. They're the ones who are benefiting from this across the board. Now, the addition to step 3, so step 3 part B is now we brought in the Department of Labor. And that's something I'm going to let you talk about because I was not involved in that a lot.
Well, like Nicole West said earlier, Wiregrass is already a registered sponsor. So they were able to set that up with the Department of Labor for us. And I didn't have to do anything but agree to a wage scale and sign an employer sponsor piece of paper. And that was it. They took care of that for us. So that was really awesome.
And this is something that if you're interested in doing something like this is, I could say, optional. You don't have to do this step if you don't want to register with the Department of Labor. I'm sure there's some benefits to the employer for doing so, but this could be done at a local level. What we've done with Langdale Forest, we've not looped in the Department of Labor. We've just kept it between these 3 parties. So let's move on to the next one. All right, so here's the how. ACE communicated the type of student they were seeking. Now this is interesting because they can't say, look, we don't have to have the straight A student. We want the student, honestly, and I guess if I'm summarizing, we want the student who's going to need to stay with us. And that's pretty clever, okay? Because they let us vet the student for them. So we went in, they communicated the level of program that they wanted, the commitment from these students. They also went in, they communicated their intended scale and scope of the program. So they said, we want this many students, this kind of student we want. Can you help us recruit those? Absolutely. So what we did was we recruited students from construction, automotive, ag, engineering, and architecture drafting programs. Those are the people I called in back when we had the auditorium. That's been since torn down, and we're building a new one, which has made this really difficult the past year, plus COVID. So we're just going to kind of, put an asterisk by 2020. I think a lot of us are. But we brought all these classes into the auditorium, and I made 4 presentations. And it's funny because you got a phone call, didn't you? And they said, hey, who's this new bald employee that ACE has? And she was like, I don't know who this is. Because we had talked about doing this, but we went ahead and rolled it out. And so the parents went home, or the kids went home and told the parents. I think one of the kids worked for ACE and was like, hey, who's this guy who's over there talking about it. Did we hire somebody else? And I said, no, that's just the coordinator. So another thing is if you work partner with Lowndes High School, I can guarantee you're hiring a full-time marketer in me, because I present this across the country, not just the state, guys. I'm presenting this in Iowa and Tennessee and Alabama. So people are looking at Lowndes County saying, this is what's happening, this is what we can do. We are the benchmark now for what's happening, because this has not been done before. We were pioneers in this, maybe a little ignorant, maybe a little too ambitious, but it worked. And now people are taking this model and rolling it out across the country. So we called all those students into the auditorium. 20-minute presentation. I walked them through the possible career goals, what's going to happen, what you could do with this company if you're interested in this specific affinity. And then I had Chromebooks down at the bottom. I said, anybody who's interested, please sign up. It's a little Google form. I had their information, and then I followed up with those students individually.
All right, the question is, have you worked with either any of the above with WIOA on some of the reimbursement monies that are available for these OJL, I think is what they call it, programs?
Yes, and that's through our partnership with Wiregrass. Some of that funding is hitting that. We also got some money back from that, even working in our adult programs, apprenticeship that we set up in Arkansas, and some funding that way to support our own internal programs. But Wiregrass applies for all those grants and takes advantage of that, and it has covered the expenses of our adult program that we have there.
Can you tell a little bit about ACE? Because I think sometimes people don't understand how big y'all are.
Yeah, we're not, ACE is the place. That's not us. We are headquartered here in Valdosta. We started, opened the company in 1975. It was and still is a family-owned business. Started out as a small residential contractor in Valdosta in 1975 and grew into an industrial commercial contractor. We no longer do any residential work. And now we've just continued to grow. So now we have 8 division offices in 3 states. We employ over 800 people through those divisions. So we have our main office in Valdosta, Macon, Statesboro, Atlanta, and then we also have our fabrication, engineering, and design, and we're just building a brand new 75,000 square foot facility out in the industrial park next to Fussell Tire, and that will what now takes up 4 or 5 little buildings off of Janet Street downtown. All those people in those buildings will be in that new facility, and we're really excited about that. Opening up several more jobs through that, and we worked with the Economic Development Authority. So we also have a Jackson, Tennessee office, and those folks there are a traveling team. We like to joke about the only 2 jobs at the time that we had done in Tennessee was our own office and a supporting office for one of our general contractors that we work for. And we also have a North Carolina division, and it's in Siler City, North Carolina. So.
All right, so we're getting that queued up now.
What does the time schedule or the availability of the student look like for the company?
That's a great question. All right, so the premise of the Work-Based Learning program is it is a release program. So students are released, and that's also very customizable. It's not like it used to be when I was in school. It was like you could only go, at the end of the day. So if I need someone, you need a student who's working in the morning. As a matter of fact, ACE did this. We had a student who was one of the best cross-country students in the state, and he had to be at cross-country practice afterwards. So we released him from school in the morning. So he would get up, go into work at like 6:30, work from 6:30 to 10:30, and then he would come into school and stay after for practice. So it's customizable. The student is released per block, so I can release them up to 3 of our 4 blocks, which in this program would have been the student would never set foot on campus, because the other block, they would have been dual enrolled at Wiregrass taking that course. So there's a lot of flexibility in when and how we release these students. The majority of my placements, students are released at the end of the day to go in, just because that way they know, that they have the kid for the rest of the day versus having a time that they actually have to stop.
And sometimes that can be a problem trying to recruit students. We lost one of our students to Miller Hardware. I don't know where you are over there. And that we really wanted to keep, and we'd have him back, but only because because he wanted to work more than we could provide for him, because we're not open on the weekends and we don't stay open until 8 at night. Most of the time our jobs are shutting down at 5:30, you know, or so. So we couldn't provide him the amount of hours that he needed, and Miller Hardware was able to do that. So
I think we're back up. We're back up. So entering students signed up through Google Form. That's when I began to do the vetting of the students. So at this point, our initial response was 76 students from across all these programs. We referenced discipline and reduced this to a number of 28. Now, that doesn't mean we have bad students. That means I was extremely picky. If I had a student who had a hat violation, they got in trouble for wearing a hat, I kicked them out, at least for the running of this, because I'm not going to send that. I wanted to make this work because this was going to be my bell cow. This was going to be the partnership that I used to leverage with other employers. And so I was very specific in the type of student that we wanted. We knew that grades weren't the highest priority, but for me, behavior was. Attendance was a huge issue for me. If they couldn't show up to school, I wasn't going to trust them to send them to ACE because I had to make this work. So then we referenced attendance. It went from 28 to 7, or 28 down to 7. And for some reason, this is very strange that you can see it just reducing by 7 each time. We referenced teacher recommendations. So of those 21 students, I reached out to the teachers and said, hey, look, this student is considering going into the industry. Do you want them representing your program? And that was a simple yes or no question. If I got a yes, they made it. If I got a no, they didn't make it. At that point in time, we did a facility tour. We went from 14 down to 21. And then with those 12, from the 12, we did a facility tour because we wanted to see the students. Actually, we wanted them to know this is what you're going to be doing. We didn't want them to, think it was going to be all cotton candy and puppies. We want to get out there and, hey, look, you're going to be working, you're going to be sweating, you're going to be, pulling wire. It's not going to be air conditioned all the time. And we took these students, and from that point, we took them to the industry tour, and we lost 3, which was good. That's good for everybody, because I don't want to put somebody in an industry if they're going to get out there and quit 3 days. That leaves ACE hanging. So with those 12 students, I now did part of my job, which is teach them interview skills, resume prep. Here's how you do this. Here's how you go in and taught them what people call soft skills. I don't like that term because there's nothing soft about them. They're hard to keep, they're hard to acquire, they're hard to teach. So I call them employability skills. But we went through a little time where I was walking them through that, helping them with their resumes, helping them with their helping them with everything. This is just an example. I blurred out the students so for FERPA compliance, but you can see I went through, had a little spreadsheet, yes, no, based on this, comments, gifted student. These are the people that we recommended. So this is kind of how we went through this, and they gave them a little bit better client or a little bit better employee pool than if I just jumped all 76 students on them. Do you want to talk about the interview process real quick?
Yeah, so I brought department managers, department heads from our different divisions, from service, from our construction, from fabrication, and some of our leadership, and just brought them to the high school, and we interviewed these students, all of them, in like a panel type interview, in 3 different panels. So we kind of put them through a little, that was pretty hard. It was a pretty hard interview process.
And there was some initial reservation from your project managers. You want to speak on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Our project managers, our leadership team was really not too interested in having high school students for the summer. They thought, we're just going to be babysitting a bunch of high school students all summer. It's going to be terrible. And they came into it with the ownership of my company, said, we're taking 5 students, so you got to pick them. So you better get in there and interview them, and you're going to pick them, and we're going to do it. So they came not really wanting to. So when we sat in the interview, is that on the next slide? I don't know what comes
next. Yeah, it's this one right here. Yeah.
Okay, so in the interview, we interviewed all 9 students, and at the end of it, we sat down and I took pictures of them. We put the pictures on the wall, and they all looked at each other and said, we're going to make room for them. We want all 9. So it was a huge
and they were kind of fighting over something.
Yeah, they were fighting. Like,
I want
which
them in my division. It was like almost like a little miniature draft of we want him, he's our first pick, and this kind of thing. And it was funny because I didn't know what to expect, because they looked at me and my boss, John Newton, and said, can we have the room? And that's not ever usually a good sign. And so I walked out thinking, oh gosh, they're going to say no, they're backing out. And the Ken, I said, we're going to take all 9. So the students did that good of a job. So again, the original plan to take 5 students. After the training and the interview process, they decided to take all 9. Now, keep in mind, it's all 9 as summer interns, not all 9 hired. So the summer internship was their vetting process.
And we paid them. It was a paid summer internship.
But it was also, we're going to see who can cut it. We're going to see who's soft and who's not going to make it. And all 9 made it through that process as well. So that's the response and vetting portion. So here's what it looks like for the summer for them, just for the summer. Before they came back into my program, they're working with them just in the summer. A little over 2,700 hours, 140.5 hours of overtime, and ACE invested a little over $28,000 just in wages for these students in the summer. And again, that's the summer of 2019, moving forward. And just some ideas of what these students were doing. They're not just following people around. They were actually out on the job sites. These are all the things, all the sites that these kids had a hand in doing. So there was even a little bit of travel with some of these students. So this is what they did in the summer. Now, the beginning of school, all 9 of those students came into the program through work-based learning. Now, 2 of those 9 students couldn't do the work-based learning program. One of them was a ward of the state, and so he was at the Boys Ranch and found out that he had, college paid for, and that was a better opportunity for him. Another one was a band student who just didn't have the room in her schedule to do work-based learning and dual enrollment. So she still worked, but she just didn't come in the program. So of those 9 students they hired, 7 of the students were enrolled in my program. 7 of those 9 students were also enrolled with the Department of Labor as registered apprentices. 8 of those 9 students were enrolled with me as a youth apprentice, okay? And then 7 of the 9 were also dual enrolled at Wiregrass initially. This is the group of students. We had 2 females and then 7, I'm good at math, male students. So these are the high school students. They're all graduated now, so there's no FERPA issue here. And the places that they were initially placed. They weren't all put in the same department. So these are the students there. And so this is kind of what it looks like. Here's kind of the 5-way win that we see here. The 5-way win is it's great for employers in industry, because we've set a precedent that this can be done and it can be done successfully. Okay, now this is coming from me as the coordinator. I am not interested in business philanthropy. Do not take on my students because you feel bad for the poor high school students. Take on my students because they can affect your bottom line. They can make you money, they can be productive, and that's a way for you to recruit future employees that are gonna stay and decrease your employee turnover. That's why I want you to partner with me. Don't partner with me because, well, it's something we should do, because those partnerships don't last. What happens when your sentiment wears off? Okay, I want you to take my kid because it is going to be productive for you without exception. It was great for the schools. It's great for the schools because our school can go out and talk about how we're involved in the community, and the programs that are federally funded and locally funded are actually meeting the needs of local industry. It is great for program instructors and program enrollment. So my teachers now, so some teachers say, well, you're taking my best kid and putting them in the workforce. And I say, yes, I am. But guess what you can do now? When you go to middle school, you can say, look, if you want to be in construction, the top 5 students each year have an apprenticeship with ACE. So guess who gets, that's a recruiting tool for my instructors as well. And it fights that mentality of, well, I want to lose my best kids to the industry. Well, if you do lose your best kids to the industry, what a great recruiting tool to tell these people this is what you want to do for a living, and I can get you a job doing it for a living, making good money.
While you're still in high school.
While you're still in high school. And then by the time you graduate, 2 of your 4-year journeyman, is it 4 or 5?
It's 4. 2
of your 4 years as a journeyman electrician are done by the time you're 18 and graduated. What a great opportunity for these students. And it's great for CTE programs across the state. Guys, this is something that we did here locally, and I'm not joking. I make no more money if you take one of my interns as an apprentice. I'm paid by the school system. I'm doing this because I live here, and I'm tired of seeing our most talented kids go somewhere else. And that's a sentiment that's echoed across the state and even across the country as people have seen this model and they've seen this is effective. And it just takes a little bit of creativity and takes a little bit of vision. And the bottom line is great for the students, because now you have 3 students who are employed full-time. One has their own service truck already.
Almost.
Okay.
They're getting ready to put him in his own service.
He's about to get his own service. Yeah, so I mean, it's a great opportunity for the kids, for us, for the school system, for the state, for the department. I mean, this is a win-win. As many times as you can say win, there's no party that's diluted in their effectiveness here through this partnership. So I believe that is going to be, here are some limitations. So again, I'm not a salesman. I don't make more money if you do this. I'm just telling you it's beneficial for your company. But I do want to be honest and say there are some drawbacks to the program. The student must have a release schedule for 2 blocks. Okay, you must have employers willing to work with kids who are under 18. You just saw a video saying there's no reason you shouldn't. So I would say if that is a corporate practice, have a discussion. Why is this a corporate practice? Can we get an advantage by employing these students over our competitors by going to 16 and 1700 students and at least training them? And if we're going to really have economic development, true, robust, organic economic development, we need to create positions for these students, not fill positions. Does that make sense? If you fill positions, it's not economic development. Creating positions for these students is economic. That's what ACE did. They created, that's true organic economic development, because it's things that didn't exist that do exist now because of our efforts. It can be difficult to build this vision in an industrial setting, but again, we showed you reasons to do that. Feeling the demand from the employer. Now that's a problem on my end. Once you've hit a home run, now I got to find more kids to do it again and again and again. But that's what we're tasked with. You got to recruit the right type of student.
He doesn't have to market the program anymore.
I don't.
The kids have done it. I mean,
that
I get a
is-
phone call every day.
Yeah,
from,
that is a true statement. It took a little effort to market it, but once you have these students who, again, who are making $4 an hour more than their friends, they have a career already, guess who they're telling? Their buddy. Hey man, you need to get in this program, okay? The vetting was time consuming but essential. I would not do it again without that. Communication between 3 large organizations. That's a limitation, but if I'm being honest, it wasn't an issue. I mean, we had great communication with Wiregrass and dual enrollment. We had great communication with ACE. And so that was the big issue. I was out of the loop in terms of the Department of Labor communication. That wasn't what I had to deal with. Buy-in from the teacher. We already addressed that. Buy-in from the parents. This is the big one. And I know there's post-secondary schools here, and I don't want to offend or alienate those, but the biggest problem pre-COVID wasn't unemployment, it was underemployment. It was going to a 4-year school, having a degree, graduating, and not being able to find a job with that degree, and then going back to Wiregrass to get a skilled trade. And so I'm telling the students, or the parents, I'm saying, look, you can put your kid in this environment, have them have a skill, and then if they get here, they want to go back to get a 4-year degree, they can do it through ACE and become, all the opportunities, but they have a great opportunity to work, make money, and they don't have that $700, $800 a month student loan payment hanging over their head.
Well, and they get an opportunity to explore a career, and we have so many different opportunities at ACE. I mean, we have designers, we have engineers, we have, the office, the accounting, the everything. There's so many opportunities, but it gives them a chance to explore that career and then decide, knowing some knowledge, do I want to pursue, this degree, and not come out and go, I just spent 4 years in school and spent all this money, and I had no idea that this is what I was going to be doing, and I don't want to do it.
Absolutely. So. And then employers and employees, that was something that Nicole just mentioned. The employers came on almost kind of hesitant, not almost, extremely hesitant. The project manager saying, I don't want to babysit these kids. And then it was 2 weeks in the job, you're getting phone calls saying, can you send my crew with them, and I'll take the high school kids.
Yep,
so
absolutely. And then at the end of the summer, they said, man, wish these kids weren't having to go back to school because we'd fire some of our helpers and keep them.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is that you're getting a hung. I mean, and I'm not saying that there's probably not any kind of quantifiable data you can track, but you're getting a student who's wanting to impress you. Like, these are kids who are grateful for the opportunity. Where sometimes you hire people and they want you to pay them for just showing up. A lot of these kids are saying, look, I am here to impress you, and they're going to work themselves. Tell the story about the kid who was driving at like 3 in the morning to a job site or something.
Yeah.
There was one kid who was late.
Yeah, and we did not punish him at all, and he's the one that's getting a service truck. He was late. We were doing some work that had to be done off hours, I think at a college. I think it was ABAC, actually. And it had to be done when there was nobody on campus. So they had to get there super early in the morning and complete this work. They had been working till really late the night before and asked him to show up at like 3:30 in the morning to ride with everybody else. So he was late and they took off without him, and he drove all the way there himself. But we weren't gonna they'd been working him to death. So
yeah, and so that's again. So the proof, even anecdotally, is in the fact that he was being requested for these job sites as a high school student. So these kids are going to be doing that, working hard, establishing program protocols. You don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it, and then you find it out, you figure it out, and that's what we did a great job with us and Wiregrass, and there really weren't any significant or substantial hangups that I can remember. And then including the students that want to go to college, and that requires flexibility. So 2 of these students who ACE hired weren't skilled trade kids, they were pre-engineering kids.
So, and the president of our company told me about both of them. They just graduated, and we gave them a really nice graduation present. And he said, you need to figure out, Nicole, when they're done, how we're going to get them back. So I need you to make sure that they work here in 4 years when they're done.
They're interested in that as well. They're interested in doing that as well. So, and so where we had to get creative, we've already talked about all these things, so I'm not going to spend any more time on that. I want to get to questions. The biggest issue here is just getting people willing to employ students under 18. Again, we've talked about all those things. There's nothing really specific there. So I guess thoughts, questions about the program, the model, or Nicole from the industry perspective on how they did what they did.
One thing that I wanted you to touch on, Nicole, is is the way that you drew them into the culture. You know, I've had the opportunity to watch this from the very, very beginning and gotten to know some of the apprentices, both those that were originally our students and those that were originally Lowndes High students. And they'll fight over an ACE t-shirt or an ACE ball cap. And to me, that was really intriguing. It was the little things, the simple things that really helped these students buy into what we were trying to accomplish and how they felt a true part of the ACE team.
Oh, absolutely. So when we took the students on, we put them through, even the 2 engineering students that were not going to be working out in the field in construction, we brought them in for a week-long, what we call Pro Start. It's like a boot camp style training, how to be an electrician helper in 40 hours is what we did. And then at the end of it, we did a banquet. And then at the end of the summer, we did a summer banquet and showed the parents and Wiregrass and the high school what these kids did all year and how much they accomplished. And it was, I just think it really helped to include them in the culture and make them feel like they were part of ACE and part of our ACE family.
And I'll say this also, I don't want to, there are a couple of these kids had really good family homes, were going to be successful, probably whatever they did. But one of these kids is...
Don't do that to me.
I'm on camera too. You got to edit this out. One of these kids is generational change. He's now full-time employed. And it could potentially, we don't know yet, but it could potentially change his kids because he's got full-time employment. Please edit this part out. It's embarrassing. But it's more than just philanthropy. There literally could be life change for some of these students, but it could also completely revolutionize the way you recruit employees. Completely. So.
And the employees of our community, you know, really, if all the industries in this town start doing programs like this, think of what we could do, economic development.
Are there certain industries you guys are looking to go next as far as, I mean, you've gotten into the electrical side of things. Have you thought about what the biggest needs of the area are right now?
The next phone call. Call me.
So,
So I'm not being short. I'm saying
no, I love it.
Literally,
I love it.
the two places that have the hardest time placing students is healthcare right now, and that's exacerbated by COVID, and financial areas because there's so much confidentiality in portfolios and investments and that kind of stuff. Those are 2 areas that have a hard time placing. But anybody anywhere else, give me a call, and we'll sit down, we'll talk, we'll examine, and it's completely customizable.
And
sweet.
This model can be mirrored in any of the programs that we have at Wiregrass. And I know we've talked a lot about engineering today. We have, I'm going to call it the wrong name, but Joe Sumner here is more of an academic than I am. He could talk to you guys about that. But we do have a program that, a 2-year pre-engineering program. We call it our mechatronics program, and everything will be transferable to VSU's engineering program. So there are ways for students to start with Wiregrass, go on to a 4-year university either here or at other sister universities in the USG system like Kennesaw State, and we have partnerships with Georgia Southern and lots of other universities. So there are ways for them to start here, go to other places, and then find their way back.
And it's been mirrored also with Langdale. Langdale has a student who's working on the PLCs who went through the mechatronics or is going through the mechatronics thing. So, I mean, you don't have to mirror every portion of this. You can, you know, I think Langdale did not include the Department of Labor because they do a lot of things privately, but there's students who are doing the same thing with them as well. So.
But we can mirror this program in an existing program of study that we have. We can also look at creating something if the demand is there like it was with ACE.
Now, we'll say this, it is not an immediate thing. This took, what, 6 months for us to plan? Because I had to be able to go in and recruit the students. So it's not like, hey, give me a call and I got 5 kids who are going to kill it the next day. I've got to take time to go into the schools, go into the classrooms, recruit the students, pitch the program, do these things. So it's not an immediate process. I could make it more immediate, but then I can't really verify or validate the type of kids we're going to get. But that's my job is to do it. So give me a call, let me know, and we'll take a meeting, and I'll show you we have 44 different pathways at Lowndes High School.
He doesn't get the summers off, so you can call him.
Yeah, I work during the summer, so that's fine to call me too. Any other questions?
And I know Jason brought up that, you know, it took a big investment on ACE's part, but it doesn't have to. We just chose to invest that much money into the program, but you don't have to. You know, a small business can use the same model, and it doesn't take a huge amount of money.
And like we've mentioned there, while their financial investment was great and very generous and helped us change the look of our lab, and it helped adapt our lab to their needs a lot quicker. What we value probably the most out of their partnership is their time. They're willing to tell us exactly what they want and to make sure that when we're creating that curriculum, putting together those classes, that they're meeting their industry needs.
Yeah. And on a macro scale, I mean, you're looking at a program, you know, we're on a block, so I had 130 kids, 180 kids, so over 300 kids. I mean, my total economic impact, wages earned from my program this year are over $1 million, just raw wages earned. Total economic impact with a multiplication of 4 is a little over $4 million total economic impact in our community. So we can do programs that are not just this. We have students, again, you saw the video with five industry employee and partners who have benefited from it.
Yeah, and in the 2 years that the 3 graduates that we still have working for us from the original group that were already graduated, they are now making over $7 an hour more than they did 2 years ago when we hired them. I mean, it's just
They're who I'm going to. If I ever need to GoFundMe, I'm calling those kids first.
Yeah.
We have like one quick question. Go ahead.
Pardon me. I have a client who's in a neighboring county that's not part of our metro area.
Okay.
If their school district doesn't have a program like the one that you've shown us today, what can I tell them, or what would you tell counties or school districts that don't have a program like this?
Well, okay, so quickly, I'll say most schools do have this program. Michael, you can attest to that. A lot of schools don't run it the right way. And I'm not saying that that's not an indication that I do. We all have our benefits. And give them my number. I'll meet with them, talk with them, walk them through that as much as I can. If they don't have the program, then I'll talk to anybody and say, here's how you can set up. Because it doesn't take my job. What it really takes is an advocate for students. It takes an advocate for your programs to go and do this. So a normal CTA teacher could do this. It would be limited in terms of the kids not being able to get off campus early. But you could utilize, if you got creative, a dual enrollment block to do something very, very similar that could do dual enrollment one block and then work the other, you know, because the way the students did is they went to work 4 days a week with ACE, and then 1 day a week they took their class. So if you don't have a work-based learning program, you could still do the same thing with a dual enrollment. Just it would be understood that the class is going to be 1 week, 2 days a week, and the kids are going to go to work the rest of the time. So there's a lot of flexibility there, but I'll stay around, give my number. I don't know if you'll have it, if it's going to be up, but reach out, let me know. I'm willing to help. You're welcome.
And Wiregrass has a regional reach, so we can partner with other high schools outside of Lowndes County, of course. And if COVID taught us anything, that we can do a lot of things virtually, so it may be that we could do some of the introductory classes, depending on what their needs are, virtually for these students that are, you know, in a county that does not have a physical campus, a physical Wiregrass or a campus in their backyard.